database stuff. With that, talk about the NorScale acquisition because that does bring a lot of value on top of what you have today with profile management or profiles. So to jump in real quick, so I'm based out of Kansas City, right in the middle of the U.S. A lot of farmland country, corn, cows, that kind of stuff. A lot of rural areas, the heartland pretty much of the United States. I've been independent for almost 2 years now, and I'm mainly focusing on EUC and EMM. So I do a lot of stuff with Citrix, XenApp, Zen Desktop, Zen Mobile. I do some of the VMware stuff, and I do some of the pure RDS stuff for Microsoft too as well. This year I've been traveling a lot overseas, so this is my 4th time to Europe this year. I went to UK User Group earlier this week and presented there on Wednesday, and that was my 2nd time there this year. This is my 1st time to Poland, so again, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. These pictures here, if you guys anyone follows me on Twitter and stuff, I tweet a lot of pictures about this process I've been doing, building an office in my backyard. The UK guys were asking about this, so I put some pictures in there on it. But me and my uncle basically build this from the ground up, and that's going to be my office in my backyard, outside away from my house, so I don't have any interruptions anymore. I have 2 small little ones at home, so usually in the afternoon when they get home, it's like daddy, 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 and work stops. So whether I'm going to call or not. But to get going here, going to talk a little bit about XenApp and desktop stuff. Am I talking okay, not too fast? Okay, I'm trying to talk fast. So.
You survived me, you shouldn't worry about it.
Okay. So I'm going to go through some XenApp and desktop stuff. So who here is on 6.5 or below still? Okay, and who's made the jump to 7.x? Okay, so we kind of have a mixed crowd here. So, you know, when you're making that transition from to FMA, which is the FlexCast management architecture, you know, in XenApp 7.x and above, from IMA, which has been there, you know, for the longest time, 6.5 and below, you have a couple changes there. So those of you that are looking to make that jump to 7.x, the first couple of early versions of XenApp 7.x were missing some features and functionality, but as they've gone with 7.7, 7.8, 7.9, and now 7.11, they've kind of closed that feature parity gap. Now, it's not perfect, but they're getting there. So, you know, a couple bullet points here on 6.5. So your farms are pretty much OS dependent. And what I mean by that is when you have your 6.5 farm, the entire farm is 2008 R2. When you're on 4.5/5.0, it's 2003. There were some times when you could mix in OSs inside the farms, but it wasn't generally recommended, and it was only recommended during some kind of transition period. We also had to be you know, very tightly coupled the controllers and the workers. And I mean by the controllers, your XML brokers, your STA servers, your zone data collectors, those were pretty much all coupled together. Now in 6.5, you could designate those different roles kind of out. We started seeing that functionality be split up, because you could say, these are my session-only host servers, these are my actual controllers in the farm. So we started seeing that. But the nice thing, of course, the one thing about that was the update ordering. So when you went and patched your environment, you had to follow a very specific process, your controllers, your XML brokers, your FTA servers, and then trickle down to the workers. But one of the things here I want to note is database offline capability. So in 6.5 and below, we had that localhost cache where if we have a database issue, we can live in a localhost cache for up to 72 hours before it's invalidated. When we make that jump to 7.x, we have some changes there. And you'll see where I have site OS dependent. So we go from farms to sites, and we also go through to where our controllers can be Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2012 R2, and now Windows Server 2016. And our workers can be in number one of those, plus we also have the ability to do desktops in the same site as well. So Windows 7 up to Windows 10 now. So everything is decoupled. So what I mean by that OS independent is that our controllers and our workers are very decoupled. So I can patch my workers independent of my controllers and vice versa. So I'm not tied to saying, okay, I have to follow this very specific patching order to get my site up to latest revision. The only caveat with these being decoupled and being able to patch these independently of each other is that you might not have the newest functionality until they're on the same level. So I can go out and update my VDAs maybe to fix something, but I won't get the newer features until my controllers are updated, because there's some policies or some updates the controllers need to expose that newer functionality to my users. Make sense? Good. Any questions so far? They're easy. Okay, so update independence, and again, I can patch my VDAs and my controllers anytime. I can patch different VDAs, so I can do rolling catalogs. I don't have to patch everything. I can kind of do that in a staged process. So typically with customers, what I do is I'll get the controllers up, make sure that functionality is good, and then come back around and start doing VDAs in kind of a rolling catalog type process. And then database offline capability. So I have an asterisk there because it's there, but it's not there. And what I mean is that there is no localhost cache yet in 7.x. There's a feature called connection leasing, and connection leasing does work in some certain scenarios, but not all scenarios like localhost cache did. Now, they talked at Synergy about localhost cache coming back in 7.x, but it's not there yet as of 7.11. So SQL availability is very important, whether you're doing clustering, mirroring, or always on. And depending on your OS level and your licensing, you can use which feature, based on that. So who's doing any kind of SQL redundancy today? No one? Clustering, mirroring, what are you guys doing? Mirroring. Because it works in the lowest edition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I typically I'll find that with most environments that I work through that don't have any kind of SQL enterprise licensing, because if you're below 2016, to take advantage of SQL always on, you have to have enterprise. But this next slide here is with SQL 2016, you get basic always on with the standard license. So you don't need enterprise to have this new kind of a mixture of mirroring and clustering. And when I say it's a mixture, because it kind of gives you the best of both. It gives you the single name like clustering, so the single listener, but it does replication on the back end like mirroring. But you're pointing your Zen desktop site to just that listener, and then it will failover based on the SQL availability group. Whereas with mirroring, you have to specify a primary and a failover. With basic always-on availability groups, you don't have to do that. Now, there are some caveats to it. So you see here up on the slide is that you're going to have basically an IP listener per database. So when you have your 3 databases in 7.x, your site database, your monitoring database, your logging database, you're going to need a listener for each one because there is some reduced functionality of always-on availability groups between enterprise and standard SQL. But we have a better functionality to get past the mirroring and not have some of the same issues, especially with local host cache not being there today. Go ahead.
Question. We have a question. Like what we've noticed with this version, we have multiple small files in multiple Active Directories, and in 6.5 we were able to manage with one SQL server to hold all this infrastructure. With this 7.68 approach, we need each SQL server for each domain, for each data center, and also we need to cluster them. So it's really goes huge.
Yeah, so for 6.5 you probably have worker groups and zones and that kind of stuff too, correct?
We are just using authentication, SQL authentication. We are not able to use SQL.
But for 6.5 you said you have a single farm for multiple sites you had, correct? For 6.5.
Multiple farms for multiple sites for multiple domains.
Okay. So depending on how your trust is set up, is there trust communication at all between those domains, or are they just
in 6.5 we just had one SQL because localhost cache was securing the time of downtime of SQL, and right now we need 2 SQLs for each and multiplied by the number of domains.
How many sites do you have?
6 sites.
So basically what you had was just SQL at the main site, and the other one didn't have any SQL there because they were using their localhost cache. Well, when that comes back,
problem.
Yeah, when that comes back, you'll be able to go back to that model with 7. Whatever the next version is going to be probably, if it's going to be in that version.
If SQL application will be rolled out, then we can combine multiple farms to one.
SQL authentication. Does it support SQL authentication today? I've only used domain authentication in 7.x.
Yeah, domain authentication makes that we need separate SQL for different domains.
You're no longer using a service account.
I'll have to check.
Right?
Yeah, it's using machines. That's right.
Yeah,
They put the machines in there for authentication.
So authenticated.
Yeah, so I'll have to do some checking on that for you. We'll talk after to see how once localhost cache comes back, how you can architect around that.
Yeah.
I can ask some stuff too about that. That's actually a good point.
About localhost cache.
Yeah, because SQL authentication. Yeah.
Sure.
So, with localhost cache coming back though, that'll help part of your problem, but not the authentication, which I can do some digging on that. Any other questions? Has anyone gone to SQL 2016 yet? So here's a good reason to go to that, because you get past mirroring, you can use the basic availability groups. Carl Webster has a great tutorial step through of how to set it up. Again, you're going to need a minimum of 4 IPs, one for the cluster, one for each listener in the availability group, for database. But this is a very good solution. I started to roll this out for customers that I'm working with, just for this feature. Like I said, a lot better than mirroring, and gives you the benefit of clustering with that single namespace. So, I know it was Sebastian, right, from Citrix earlier?
Yeah.
He kind of hit on the new stuff. So I kind of cut some of my stuff out from the UK user group, but a couple things I wanted to hit on was the whole Microsoft and Citrix partnership. So we're kind of seeing that come back into the fold and be on the forefront again, whether it's for the application and desktop side or whether it's for the mobility side as well. But some of the highlights I wanted to hit here was, he talked about universal apps and isolation groups, but recently too with the AppV integration. Is anyone use AppV in here today? Okay, so in the past, you had to use, had to have the AppV infrastructure to tie AppV into the desktop. Now, since of like 7.7 or 7.8, it's serverless now. So you can just put your actual sequence AppV applications on a file share and manage those directly inside of Studio. And then with 7.11, they took it a step further into the isolation group, so you can just sequence those one apps and then have the inter-isolation communication based on the isolation groups that you set up inside of Studio. So it's truly a serverless infrastructure now with AppV, a lot easier. And if you're doing XenApp, so who's all XenApp in here? Pretty much everybody's doing XenApp. You get the RDS cal, or you get the AppV cal with RDS. So you can AppV to your XenApp servers. So this kind of reduces the amount of infrastructure you need if you want to use AppV in your environment. The other thing is Azure Stack. Has anybody heard of Azure Stack or looked at it? So Azure Stack, what it is basically taking an exact copy of what you see in the Azure cloud from Microsoft, and you can install it on-prem. In the past, it was called Azure Pack, but it wasn't an exact copy. It was System Center on the background, but it was Azure Spin on the front end of it. With Azure Stack, it's basically the same as you see in the cloud. Now, not all the functionality is there yet, but with 7.11, they support what's called Azure Resource Manager templates, and that's the new portal you'll see in Azure to go ahead and deploy virtual desktops or applications using MCS on Azure, whether it's in the cloud or using Azure Stack. In the past, it was only Azure Classic it would support, but in the latest version, they're going to support Azure Resource Manager. And then another thing, too, is have you guys heard the recent announcement about Microsoft and Citrix with Azure Road Apps?
Yeah.
So the whole XenApp Express announcement. So Ignite this week, and there's actually a demo out there. You can go see that in that session about Microsoft and Citrix, and they actually show XenApp Express. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, basically what XenApp Express is, it's going to be Azure Remote Apps 2.0, and they're going to basically power Azure Remote Apps with XenApp now in the cloud. So that's out there as well. Another thing I want to talk about, too, is with graphics, because I know graphics are getting more and more common use cases in the environment. Is anyone doing Hyper-V in here at all? A couple hands. So I'm a big Hyper-V fan. My biggest issue is System Center Virtual Machine Manager, but I'm not going to go on that rant today. But Server 2016 adds what's called Direct Device Allocation Assignment, or Discrete Device Assignment. And what you can do is take a GPU and basically it's pass-through mode. So for instance, with this one right here, since this is a grid card, and it has actually 4 physical GPUs in that one card, you can sign up a GPU to 4 different VMs. Now, if it was a card that only had 1 GPU on it, it'd be a 1-to-1 mapping. But again, you can take that and get that graphics piece inside of the desktop. In the past, when they did graphics, they sat on top of Remote FX, and you had to use RDP protocol to actually use it. But now you go into HDX, and you're able to use this pass-through in here. Now, setting this up is not very straightforward. Has anyone tried this at all in the tech preview? So setting this up is not very straightforward. It's a bunch of PowerShell commands, and so it's not the best process. You have to put the drivers on the server, put the drivers in the VM, and there's a whole blog post on TechNet about all these PowerShell commands to pass it through. The other thing, too, is it's not just graphics. You can pass through, like, NVMe SSD to it as well. So if you have any high-performance VMs that need that, you can do that also. But this is another use case out there for doing graphics inside of the apps and desktop. I hope that one day that Citrix makes the virtual machine manager piece optional, not required. Because that's kind of the biggest hurdle for a lot of people. What do you guys think that in Hyper-V? Virtual machine manager?
That was stable, but we had some
issues before.
Yeah,
There's many issues.
Yeah, it's a beast. So yeah, back to that whole Microsoft Citrix partnership, so the Hyper-V thing, but you're seeing that with Intel. We talked about using the Intel TV graphics pass-through with the Intel Iris Pro and being able to do, like, I think it's like 7 per GPU. It's limited to the E3 processor, but with Intel, where you can do the Intel sharing now too as well for the lower end graphics. So, Northscale. Sebastian mentioned that earlier in one of his slides. I'm going to kind of go into it more and do a demo of it and go through the consoles and show you what it looks like. But what Northscale pretty much does is brings a contextual process to the apps and desktop. So I mean, like contextual is that it's kind of based on certain conditions. You can do certain things inside of a session. Like before, you get to like log off and log back on, like a GPO or a GPP to apply. These can do it in session without having to log off, log back on. There's an agent that will sit on there that refreshes. Now, some of the things it does is CPU memory management, profile management integration. So Northscale itself, like some of the other solutions out there on the market, it doesn't have its own profile solution. What it does is you can use the profile management solution from Citrix. You can use your own profiles, and it actually has integration with VMware Persona, which I don't expect that to keep going forward too much longer since Citrix bought them. But you also have these things like, self-service app shortcuts. So you can publish some shortcuts into a little utility I'll show you, and they can delete them or allow them and self-healing. Same thing with printers. So inside their session, they'll have self-service printers. They can change their defaults, do that kind of stuff right in their session with this little trailer utility. Support. So they can actually take a screenshot in session and send that email to support. Now, in the past, what I've done with a lot of customers that are Platinum is I've used session recording for troubleshooting. Because how many times do you have a scenario where you're playing that back and forth with that person, right, saying, I can't reproduce it, you keep having the problem. So I used to use session recording in Platinum and say, okay, I'll turn recording on, let me know when it happens, I'll turn it off, and I can see the problem. Well, with this feature, and since Northscale, which was renamed to Workspace Enterprise Management, or Workspace Environment Management, sorry, it's going to be available with Enterprise and Platinum users. So they've already announced that on the blog post. So you can use that capture screen utility for support to kind of help with that same kind of issue that I use session recording for. Now, I saw this tweet out there, so I put this in the deck the other day, is that, Hal Klein, he wrote the profile management tool, they like this in Zipago. It's been there for a couple of years, and someone made a comment on Twitter, and I was like, well, they bought Northscale, and that's going to basically take, profile management to that next step that was missing inside the Citrix product stack. So I think a couple of hands have looked at Northscale here before. There's a couple. So what the architecture looks like is basically you have a couple different things here. This does have a SQL backend, so it's in the database you have to have. The nice thing is they support offline mode, so the agent and the broker can both lose connectivity to the database and still function if you turn offline caching on to that database. It's a SQL compact database that it uses on there, but the main components are you're having an agent, and the agent can go on physical, virtual, NAS, and desktop, whatever you want to put it on. Then you'll have a server infrastructure that has the actual broker piece, the console you can install, and then the backend SQL database. From there, you'll set up policies and conditions and so forth, and apply those to different user groups and so forth inside the environment. But like I said, it's going to take that profile management to a next level. And I think one of the two big reasons that Citrix acquired them was, one, for the performance management they do, and then two, they integrate with profile management on top of it. So they're not throwing that away. They're actually integrating with it. So let's do a demo time. And skip out of this. Window screen. There's the console, and there's, okay. So here's the console, and this is 4.0, and actually 4.0 became available for download yesterday from Citrix. So if you're Enterprise or Platinum and you have current software maintenance, you can actually go out to the site and download this right now for Enterprise and Platinum. They also started rebranding it too as well. So the console now does say Workspace Environment Management. You can see they changed the icon as well. This right here is the main administrator console, so I'll go ahead and connect. You guys see that okay? So a couple of things you'll see in here is you can import and export actions and settings. When you come up to the top, this is where you can actually control the application list that they see. and you can also control what's in the start menu. So you're taking a lot of things out of what we typically do inside of group policy and bringing it inside of here, and it's going to be agent-based on the endpoint. So applications, things like printers, and this is where I talked about like the self-service printer comes in too as well. We're able to import a network print server. We can start network drives. We can lock down the different virtual drives inside the session. We can add registry keys if we need to, environment variables, a lot of stuff that you can do through GPP, but this is more contextual, and so you can do conditions-based kind of if this, then that type of thing. So if anyone has done anything with like Environment Manager or Workspace Manager from Res, kind of that similar contextual concept based on if I, come from this form factor device, or if I come from, this application, I need some app drives, that kind of thing, instead of just doing it every time as a login. INI files, file associations, and that kind of stuff too. And then we have things like filters, where we can go through and create our filters to assign policies to them and then set conditions. So inside the conditions here, if I go ahead and edit one, we can say, this is based on the client OS, it's enabled, the filter condition type is going to be by the OS, and you see all these different conditions that we can do. So folder exists, IP address match, Active Directory attributes not being there, Synapse and desktop version, OS platform, even PBS image mode as well. So we can do things based on if it's in pirate mode or standard mode, and then go through here and also do things like, WMI queries, matching farm names. So it does bring a lot of options into an environment. So like, say for instance, I'm at my desktop in the office, and then I say, okay, here's a client OS one, and then I go home and do it like from an iPad or something like that, change the form factor. We can set up conditions and policies for that as well to change that session dynamically when I reconnect. So these are some of the things that you can do with it. So like I said, it's very powerful for some of the things in here that you can do. When we go down in here to assignments, we can set up users and we assign things to the users. But the big thing I want to talk about is system optimization. So we have things like fast log off in here. So what it does basically, it logs the user off and does things in the background, so it's not hanging out user session there for the user waiting to log off. We can also go in here and exclude specific groups. A big thing here is CPU management. So think of like, are you guys familiar with AppSense at all? Yeah. So AppSense Performance Manager, similar concept. So when the CPU starts, being taken over by like a runaway app, like that, and then with memory, we can clamp it down so it's not affecting the user experience in that session. I will show that in here during the demo too as well. But we can go through and do spike protection, intelligent optimization of it, priority, clamping, and so forth. And these are all different things that we can set granularly in here. Same thing with memory management, same concept. Help kind of make sure that memory is not being taken by one session on a Synapse server. Process management, we can do blacklisting and whitelisting of that. Another thing too, I talked about the integration with profile management. So we have that down here, where we do everything that we see inside our profile management in GPO or Citrix policies for inside the console as well. So we have all those same settings here as well. The nice thing too is that we automatically have the default exclusions in here. So every time that they update the profile management INI file, and you go through, you copy your exclusions, put them in your base policy, well, we have the default stuff updating here all the time between XP 2003, Windows 7 2002, and then going forward with the newer OSs.
So Jarian, basically when you install this workspace environment management agent, you also also install the profile management agent.
Yes, so you'll stop, because you have the VDA. So the VDA will automatically have the profile management installed already. Okay. If you're on the older version, so this does support 6.5 and below too as well. So if you're on the 7.x version with the VDA, where profile management gets installed during the VDA installation, you just install this agent. If you're on 6.5 or below, you install profile management and this agent on there as well. So good question. We also control like environment settings, so desktop, start menu lockdown, all these things that we have in here. There is some tuning stuff as well. And then we have things like, let me see whether that's a good thing here to show. So advanced users, some cleanup actions, the agent, some agent settings. When you install the agent, you can also initially configure it via GPO for just the agent and point it to the environment, and then everything else is done through this console. That's going to pull from the agent. Monitoring is a good one too, so we can actually point reports inside of here. So we can look at different login reports. Let's see if they change those environments. I know they were change updating this so I can find some data to show you guys. So in here, you're seeing the logon trends report. So you're seeing like less than 20 seconds log on, max 6 seconds, average 5 to 5 seconds. Boot trends, device types. So you can see all this information right from the console. So we'll see different OS types in here that are coming in the environment, and hopefully over time they port this to Director to integrate with that for reporting. This is what you have today in the console. Then we go in here like user and device reports, so we can see users coming into the environment. User. I'm using 9, so this should show. So you're seeing here my login time, my login duration right here, and so forth. But that's what you see from the administration side. Now from the client side, I talked about a couple of things. So this is like a Windows 7 virtual desktop. Again, this will support all the stuff that they support for 7.x, 6.x, all the way down, Windows 7 and higher for the operating system. There's not 2016 support yet, I believe. I think I have to validate it. I think they're more busy with the acquisition migration from Northscale to Citrix, so that's not there yet. But a couple of things I want to show you here is that there's an agent right down here. So inside of the desktop, you can hide this or choose to show it, but here's the capture screen thing that I was talking about. So in here, if something pops up on my screen, you can do a capture screen and send it to support. Now, when you first configure this in the console, there's like an email template configuration you have to go through for it. But like again, that troubleshooting thing where you're playing that back and forth, not being able to reproduce it, they can take a screenshot, send it directly to support, and show you exactly what's going on. The other piece inside of here is going to be manage applications. So I can manage where my applications are placed that are available to me. So whether it's on the desktop or whether it's on the start menu, I can toggle some of that. Now by default, you'll say, here are the applications you'll have for your session, but you can allow them to control where they go and also do self-healing of these as well. The one thing I really like too is printer management. So if I go in here and manage printers, I can go through here, write my session, change my default printers, have that saved with everything, but go through and go ahead and modify these right from my sessions. I have a little printer utility here as well. So some very helpful stuff in here. On the performance management side, let me see. This is what some of the performance management will do. Default task manager. So you see right now, basically, I'm pegging the processor on this machine. This could be a Xen app server. This could be a virtual desktop. But if I go through here and do any kind of functions, it's not having any issue with my my actual user experience in the session. My user experience in the session is still working fine. So, for instance, I'm working through Explorer fine. At least I was. There we go. I can go through here. The CPU is pegged. I go through and type. My connection. This is the session. Come on. The system works so much better the other day. Like my session.
An early version.
No, actually, I'll type in real time. When I was in the UK, I'll type in real time to do my session today. But real time typing, being able to pull directly, open files and not have that degradation of performance as well.
They showed something similar on the webinar.
Yeah, so you have all the same stuff, even pulling large files across the network and stuff too as well, being able to do this. So again, if I was on a Xen app server, it wouldn't be affecting other users. On the session, on this desktop, it wouldn't be affecting other applications that are in use here. So any questions so far?
Yes, where the data, the configuration, like printers and so on, where are they saved? On the workspace server or in the profile of the user, which is managed by profile manager?
So it's kind of twofold. So you can assign printers and have them available inside of here. So I can import a print server, set up ones they can see. But for instance, if I select my default printer for that session, it will save that into my profile. Because nothing from the user side gets saved back to the database. It's just saying the actions, in the environment. But any kind of customization, stuff like that, would stay within profile management. Good question.
So configuration printer for users is just to change the default printer.
They can change the default. You want to know if they can add more printers? If they don't have
They have option to add more printers or just hide some.
more, just change them right now and search. So I don't have anything in here, but the main thing, they have to have them assigned from here to see more printers. So you would still have to first assign them.
Default, or it's just policy blocks access to others?
So basically, it's going to give you the list that you're allowed to see, allowed to search and add in here, but then also allow you to set your own default too as well as you change different environments. Okay. So, good question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the policies, because this tool is basically utilizing the Citrix policies engine or Active Directory.
So it will have some of both in there. So you'll see stuff that you'll see in some of the Citrix stuff, and that's where we have our conditions.
Okay.
Where we can, see some of the same conditions that we have based on what we see inside of our conditions, based on some policy stuff. So you'll see both.
Is it possible to see the result set of policies? So
yes, there is a tool in here.
But it's not default integration into Microsoft.
you might have a mix here. You might have AD Citrix and additional policies here and there.
Where was that again? There is a resultant set of tool policy in here. I don't remember about that.
The Citrix.
If it's not in here, it's a separate tool that comes up.
Okay.
But you can go through and actually see what's applied to a user.
Okay.
So that is there. That's a good question.
And it's showing, is it coming from AD, from Citrix, or from those policies, right?
The resultant set will kind of pull from a combination of that session.
Okay.
So, if I remember correctly, how that does that. The other thing too for troubleshooting, you also have the debug viewer that you can show inside the session, so you can actually go through and start debugging. You can refresh the log, load the log and so forth, and go through and sit right in the session, and then also do it from the client side as well. There's also some profile cleaning you can do. So when we go back to the profile piece, there's a piece in here, no, it's not in here, where you can do some profile cleaning as well. So actually clean out a user's profile, fix if there's an issue, do some kind of things like that on the backend side. I started using this like a not too long ago, so.
Can you set up few profiles based on the server to which your session will connect? Or?
So you can tell the path like you do in profile management, but you will still have to set up the backend share and that kind of stuff too as well. So, but you can tell it inside the profile settings. You can tell it, the same stuff you tell it inside of profile management. Tell it where to save the profile to the profile server.
Okay.
So hopefully over time we'll see more integration between that, since we see the actual policy engine and control in here. But hopefully over time we'll see more integration with that. One thing I like to see is them kind of do some kind of on-the-fly profile cross-platform. So today with cross-platform profile management, it's kind of like you just set those templates manually. I like to see them put inside this agent to do that on the background on the fly. So no matter where I log in from, it's going to dynamically change that based on if I'm Windows 7 or Windows 10, and not have to do that cross-platform profile stuff manually set those templates. So, any other questions on Northscale? Do you guys see this handy at all?
Yes.
What's that?
Exactly.
So how's it licensed?
Yeah, because it's useful because it's a part of Platinum license, right?
No, it's Platinum Enterprise.
Yeah, okay, so anyway, if you have those licenses, you can already use the tool, so
Yep.
it's definitely providing some improvement.
Yeah, and after yesterday, as of yesterday, it's out there available for download. So you can go out there to Citrix, you can log in under the Netflix desktop downloads, you'll see the workspace environment management download. And as long as your software maintenance meets the date, I think it's like yesterday or here recently, you're able to download it. But it's software maintenance, so they have subscription advantage and software maintenance. It's going to be more based on software maintenance. So.
And one more question.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, it's production version. It's not beta or something like this.
It's production version. So basically, this is the new version of 4.0. So on Northscale site, so we actually go to Northscale and go to their site.
I'm asking because let's say we will install it on our desktop environment, and after that we got some issues related to, I don't know, user profile, view, resource sharing, whatever. And who will help us? Let's say we've got support, we've got CRM.
Yes, you'll go through support. It's not fully in the portal yet, but you'll go through support, and I'll show you a couple things. That's a very good question. Yeah, so it is supported. So like for now, if you go to the Northscale site, you'll see 3.5, the current version out there. That's the last version that shipped from Northscale of their branded version before the acquisition. this new version is actually 4.0. So if we go to the About in here, you'll see this is actually 4.0, and it's going to pull from your license server in Citrix now, not from the license files they used to have in the earlier versions. But let me go ahead and log in back to the site, and I'll show you real quick. So there is an app and desktop download. Again, this is available today as of the new version I'm showing right now. And if I go into here, I'll show you the exact date you need to have for software maintenance to have access to this. If I log in. That's my connection. Sorry. What's going on today then? I'll come back to that. It's going to take a minute.
It's there.
Yeah, but it's there. The download's there. You can go to it today. I'm going to show you the date and also there's a support note too. So it says there's a link there for support you have to go through. They're still making the transition over, but you get support from Citrix from today. So if that comes up, I'll show you later.
Do you know why it's only available under software maintenance and not under subscription advantage?
Because from what I understand, everything going forward is the software maintenance way because that's going to give you support as well. And so everything's moving to that model. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So whenever you want SA only, you will need to have
Support contract, right?
kind of. But what I wanted to say, if you really want SA only, that can be done only based on sales exception, which needs to be negotiated with ULA, I guess.
So they changed this page today because there wasn't a 7.x page anymore, but this is new today. But yesterday there was actually a date here that said you need to have for software maintenance. You go over here and see if I can show it here.
Eligibility date, right?
September, no, that's the date it was released. It was out here today. Here you go, 8th, there you go. So you see right there? If you have software maintenance of September 8th, you have access to this enterprise and platinum. So, any questions on more on North Philly before I move on?
If you could say a few more words about CPU's scheduling. You said that one user session on the server.
Yeah, so if you're doing either one, go ahead.
The other. So, what mechanism does it make use of? It's Microsoft.
Yeah, so it's working with the Microsoft APIs for the CPU management, and then for the memory, it's doing the same thing as well. It's not doing like in the past where we have like the DLL rebasing. It's not doing that with memory. It's doing the API in Windows too as well. So a little bit different mechanism than some of the other things we're doing in the past.
Basically, there are two mechanisms. One from Microsoft, dynamic CPU scheduler, and another CPU utilization management. So it's another mechanism on top of it? Or?
Yeah, so like with Microsoft, and by default, they're only going to prioritize their Microsoft stuff. With this one, he's actually prioritizing anything in the session as well. So the thing that's in the foreground is going to get the most priority, but it's still going to be able to, as you're switching through things, not impact the user experience. So it's kind of both. Best way to explain it.
Okay, but our problems are that one user session, when it starts consuming CPU, it influences the other session on the same terminal server. So it doesn't resolve that issue because it's resolves issues inside one user session.
So with this one, for my testing, it doesn't affect the other user sessions, so it's going to even it out so it's not affecting user experience across the server. So like I said, it's kind of a mixture. I don't have like the in-depth details of it, but for my testing, I just know that when I've done these tests, like I've gone here to the CPU eater in one session and then coming through another, and I've had no problem. So, but something you definitely want to verify and test too as well. So, any other questions? What do I got about 20 minutes left? So I'm gonna go back to my deck here and pull this back up. So talking about some monitoring stuff now. So a couple of things here is who's a PBX user? screen. There we go. So with PBS, and who have PBS users in here? Raise their hands. So one thing about PBS is by default, and you probably guys have seen out there different scripts and different tools you can use to see what the RAM cache is doing, especially with the newer RAM cache overflow stuff. Well, there's still no performance counters in there. So Remco and Andy Morgan at CTP of mine, they actually wrote their own perfmon tools you can go out there and download for free and put in, so you can actually see through perfmon exactly what the RAM cache is doing. So you'll see in here, there's verification enable. You can go download it, and you'll see right inside of perfmon that they're there. Something that hopefully they add to the product in PBS, and something you'll start being able to see in Director as well. I've been playing with a little bit of the Director plugin model. Has anyone heard of that at all? So with Director 7.7, 7.8 or 7.9, it's been in the higher versions of it. I think it's 7.7. There's a thing called the Director plugin model, where you can write your own plugins for Director and bring more custom functionality into it. So for instance, there was one that Citrix published out there for custom reports. So in the past, if you wanted to pull custom reports through Director, you had to hit the APIs, whether it's through using PowerShell, using Excel OData feed, using things like LinkPad, that kind of stuff. What they did is now there's a report piece. I can show you guys a different deck I had, like a full monitoring session at Rifarm earlier this year, to where you can actually pull those reports directly inside of Director through a tab now and export those to Excel or PDF. That was a plugin they wrote. Anybody using SCOM in here? So you guys know with the later version, you can bring SCOM in Director, right? In later versions, where you can see alerts inside Director. That's using the same plugin model as well. Anyone use Tanix? Use Tanix at all? Tanix also wrote a plugin as well. So when you go to the machine view, and I have some stuff I can show you guys if you want to see them. When you go to the machine view of each machine, it's going to show me that VM performance of the machine I'm using on the Tanix backend. And then I know Atlantis, anybody using Atlantis at all computing product in here? They're writing a plugin as well. So hopefully what we'll do with Citrix, we'll see them actually add this into Director themselves. I'm playing around with the plugin stuff. You can write your own, bring whatever you want to, and for data. But one thing that's really missing is this RAM cache functionality, being able to see that. Now, on the flip side, with MCS, they actually did the right thing with this. So if you're using MCS, anyone using MCS in here, Machine Creation Services? The one sole hand? So Machine Creation Services, they did it right. They actually built the perf counters in. So when you use MCS with RAM cache or RAM cache with overflow, those counters are there, so you actually see that memory size of the cache and everything as well and monitor it. Again, it's not showing this in Director. Hopefully they add this, but it's a very useful tool. I'm doing more and more deployments on Machine Creation Service, especially I'm doing stuff like with Nutanix or doing stuff with Atlantis, any kind of those newer hyper-converged type deployments. I'm doing more MCS type stuff, so this is going to help show you that performance, but again, it's not in Director. A couple of things, though, which I don't know why they did this, because PBS, you can do RAM cache overflow or just RAM cache. And then when they just had RAM cache only, people would do that, they would exhaust their cache, and that would blue screen or lock up the actual PBS target. So I don't know what the thinking was having inside of Studio, the wizard, when you create a catalog for MCS RAM cache, not putting a bigger warning in there for doing RAM cache only, or having that option there at all. Most people I work with are doing RAM cache overflow because, again, if you exhaust that cache, bad things happen. So if you're going to use this functionality, just like with PBS, make sure you test, make sure you have enough size for the page file, make sure you have enough space for free space, and so forth, to make sure you don't have any problems when that overflow to cache happens. When it does help performance for my testing, and I've seen with customers, it does help, improve user experience, but just make sure that you test the size properly. There's a good blog out there about the optimization too. There's a series on the Citrix blogs, and then Andy Morgan has one on the Control blog as well for this. Any questions on those two caching mechanisms? Do you guys want to see what the plugins look like I was talking about? The plugin model stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me come out of this one, and I'll pull something up for you guys. Kind of going off script here with this one. Boss. So I'll show you guys exactly what the plugin changes look like once I find it in the real quick. So right here, here's an example of the Nutanix one. So Nutanix actually wrote their own plugin for their Acropolis hypervisor. And just that's squeak. There we go. This MacBook 12 does not like switching back and forth sometimes between presenter mode and non-presenter mode. There we go. So this is what the Nutanix one looks like. So Nutanix with their own plugin for their Acropolis hypervisor. It's actually supported on the desktop now too as well. So when you go into the machine details view, you're able to drill down and see this. If you scroll down, be able to see exactly what the storage footprint and performance looks like for that virtual machine for each one. This is a director plugin that they wrote. They just released their updated 7.11 plugin stuff because it didn't work with 7.11, but it's out there now. But this is what the Nutanix one looks like. And let me go through, and if you guys want to see what the, if you guys want to write your own plugins out there, there's a GitHub repository out there from Citrix. And there's also John McBride, who's a developer for Citrix, has an actual YouTube video that walks you through using Visual Studio Community Edition to be able to kind of walk through that process and write your own plugin. So if you guys want to put your own custom views or data inside Director, this is a very good YouTube video you can go out there and follow. This is what I started off doing when I first started playing with the plugin model. So if anyone's out there wants to write their own, there's a very good tutorial out there. There's also a blog series too. Let me show you what that report piece was talking about that I was telling you. All right, just go back one slide instead of doing this. So, Insight Services. Oh, here we go. Let me go through this deck real quick. This is an older one before 7.11 was released. But I'll show you what the report piece I was talking about looks like. I haven't verified this on 7.11 yet, but I know it works in the earlier versions. So, go back. Come on. So here we go. So this is a SCOM integration. So this is using the same plugin model. So if you have a SCOM shop out there, this is what the SCOM integration looks like inside of Director. There's a certain permissions and stuff you have to follow, but you can see all your alerts directly inside of Director instead of having to jump through multiple consoles. So there's an example of this one. This is what the Director plugin model kind of is. So you have an external, a back-end and front-end code, and again, you can write your own. So the SCOM using the plugin model, the report where I'll show you, that's using the plugin model. The Nutanix when I showed you, that's using the plugin model as well. That custom report one, this is what it looks like right here. So when you go out there and they have, depending on what version of Director you're on, there's a download for like 7.7, 7.8, 7.9 you can download for this, and there's a way to install it too as well. But you'll see this new tab inside of Director, and you can do all your custom reports right from Director, and you can export them as Excel and so forth. The nice thing too is that it shows you the OData query as well. As you go through and drop down and create these reports, and there's all kinds of the categories they have in there from the backend OData data, it will show you that query right here. So if you do any kind of custom scripting, it kind of helps you get down what that query looks like. So does anybody find this helpful at all? Yeah. So it's a lot better than the CAN reports.
Can you modify the query straight here?
You can modify, I think you can modify the query straight here. I haven't done that. I've only just copied it out because I do the drop downs and see what it puts out, but you might be able to do that. I haven't tried that. Right. So. Okay. Any questions so far about this? So we have a couple SCOM hands in here. Do you guys know about the SCOM management packs? No. No? Okay, I'll work on another deck then. I was going to talk about that anyway. So Citrix acquired the technology from Comtrade, and what they did with that was kind of bring more end-to-end monitoring into the Citrix stack. Now today, with Director and then even the past Edge site, there were some gaps in the monitoring for Citrix, right? For instance, Citrix was good at monitoring like the Xenap servers and desktop, but doesn't do a good job monitoring things like PBS or storefront, web interface, licensing, and so forth. So what Comtrade adds to this is they're going to do your full stack monitoring in here. So We're going to have NetScaler, storefronts, and Amazon desktop. You're going to be able to see things like PBS write cache inside their products as well, but all pull into SCOM. And then again, with that plugin to be able to see SCOM inside Director, you'll be able to pull some of those alerts inside of Director. So if you're a Platinum customer, you get pretty much everything over here. So from CloudFront and NetScaler all the way over to monitor 6X and above, 7.x, monitor PBS, storefront, licensing, web interface, kind of get that end-to-end monitor if you're a SCOM shop. I work with a lot of customers that are using Hyper-V for their infrastructure for Zen Desktop, and with the licensing change from System Center in 2012 and 2012 R2, you have some of the stuff with the licensing now. So SCOM is a big undertaking for those of you guys that have worked with it, but I kind of tell them, since you have the entitlement, kind of do a focused deployment for this right now and then grow over time. Don't try to do like an all-encompassing SCOM deployment or you're going to get lost and it's going to take forever. But then too, they have a share file plugin they just released, but you have to have the Workspace Suite, which I hope that changes because I have a lot of customers that don't use Zen Desktop. They just use ShareFile Enterprise or the Mobile Enterprise. But you have to get Workspace Suite to get the ShareFile plugin, which they wouldn't make sense for them. But a lot of things you can do is that you can drill down. There's topology discovery. So go out there and discover each component in the environment that you set it up for. And you can see the errors right there. Last stuff, I'll show you that, where you can drill down and see like a service or a component that's having a problem and drill right down the way through it. You can do things like troubleshooting, your probes for enumeration, so synthetic transactions. So it actually will probe the XML to make sure the application enumerations is there. And then PBS write cache size monitoring, which we don't have today out of the box with Citrix, and licensing reports and so forth. But I'll show you some examples of that. Here's kind of that topology diagram you see. And then from here, like you said, PBS, web interface, different things. You see there's the red X's here, and there's like the check mark and so forth. And we can drill down and drill all the way down to see what's going on inside of there. And then we have things with our Health Explorer, so we can get some information on, what went wrong, some causes, some alerts we can click to. So it's a very powerful tool if you have SCOM in your environment. Now, hopefully, one day Citrix will take some of the technology, those of us who don't do SCOM, and kind of put this into Director without having the requirement for SCOM. I can see them do that eventually at some point. Here's some of your alerts and stuff. It tells you exactly, what's going on. Load index. These blue pieces you can put down to get more info for it. And then also, too, as well, performance reports, SLA dashboards. So if you're in the environments where you have SLA requirements, there's dashboards for that. And so those are the kind of things that you can do with the SCOM management pack. Any questions? Go ahead.
This contract management pack is great. We have it implemented it and it really works. I can confirm. But since we took the decision to move away from SCOM to VRI and this kind of tools, is there such something for this another monitoring system?
That comes with Citrix. No, but there's third-party ones out there. Appin already talked about what he can do with his stuff. There's other third-party products out in the market you can use, but
this was a really good management pack. So
yeah.
So Citrix, right?
What's that?
So Citrix, for example, which can be used components.
Which is Citrix? Citrix, yeah. Citrix Lakeside.
Yeah,
for something like Lakeside, there's Liquidware, there's Control Up, there's like all kinds of third-party add-ons.
You can always use Director.
Yeah, you can use Director too. Director, like I said, you're missing some stuff. Now, if you want to get savvy and write your own plugins for missing functionality in Director, you can do that. But Director out of the box is still missing some of the pieces that these management packs have or the third-party products have. So hopefully they'll take this technology over time and bake it into Director without that SCOM requirement. That's the like I give you to them. It's saying take the technology, bake it into Director, and let's not require the SCOM underneath it to be able to use this functionality. So, all right, time.
You still have 5 minutes.
Okay. Any other questions? No? You guys find this useful?
Yeah.
I kind of took my deck a little bit because I overlapped with some of Sebastian's deck from the UK with. So, I'll be here the rest of the day. I do a lot of stuff around monitoring too, so I'm pretty interested to see what your product does with Appin. I haven't looked at that yet. So
You will.
I will now. So I do a lot of stuff, like I said, this whole session I did in this one was a whole deck I did around monitoring at Fryform, London and Boston. But I look at a lot of monitoring products over the years and try to extend the built-in functionality from what's built into Citrix. So
Tylko, że musimy włożyć lufkę.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Because I was answering somebody's question later on about our product, the price is part of it. I forgot to mention that.